Today is our season 1 finale of Green Chair Conversations. I cannot believe that we are wrapping up our first season of Green Chair. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to do that than with a few of the key people who had a major behind the scenes impact this past year. Today, we welcome Tommy Morris, who happens to be my husband and better half, Heather Strongmore, who is the CCO co-director, Jeff Trotter, the special assistant to the senior pastor, and Sean Fernandez, Hope's digital communications specialist. I am crazy excited about today and our honest, very candid conversation on the lessons and challenges and behind the scenes stories we have experienced along the way. So let's get to it and welcome the panel to our season 1 finale of Green Chair Conversations. Hey guys.
Hey.
I am so excited about this conversation. I have been number one, I told you guys before we got on here, I have been very nostalgic. This is a big day for our own family. Dell is done with virtual school, and also this is a big day for wrapping up season 1 of Green Chair Conversations. It has been a huge journey. God has done so much, and you guys are the people who know all the behind the scenes stories. So before we kind of dive in, I really do want to open the floor. I'm saying this on the record, which I'm totally going to regret later. You guys are the ones who have pushed me to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I'm opening the door for questions. You guys get to ask me questions. I get to ask you questions. This is going to be a very open, honest conversation. And so I really, I'm excited for today and looking back, looking forward, all of that good stuff.
Can I start?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you can.
You do better at asking questions than I do, so I'm just stealing one of yours and throwing it back at you.
Okay.
In each episode, you asked, what lessons can we learn from this conversation and giving advice. And so throughout this 40 some odd episodes, what lessons have you learned?
That's crazy. I think it's wild. I was thinking of this morning, right? What has God been doing through Green Chair? What has God been doing through all of these episodes? And the biggest thing, I just said it, number one, is, and I'm so thankful for, number one, people. A big lesson is just having people around you, having community around you to push you and challenge you. But the biggest thing for me is just constantly getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is very uncomfortable for me. I'm just gonna own the fact. Literally, you guys, knowing that you can ask me questions, I'm gonna have to be vulnerable in this moment. That's super uncomfortable for me. And that was just this huge lesson for me. And another lesson that I was just thinking of this morning, actually, and then I texted you guys because I got all nostalgic, but I'm learning a little bit about, just taking risks. That's a big one for me. I think, God impressed this on my heart of initially Green Chair started because I spent 40 days praying through what God's going to be doing next in ministry, what God's going to be doing next in this church. And Green Chair was birthed out of that, in this idea of saying, okay, the church has to do something more online. The church has to do something more digitally. And that was pre-COVID, which is wild to me, that I kind of had this in my brain and thinking, why would God want the church to be doing more of this? Made no sense. And then literally a couple months later, and I know you got to see some of the inside scenes with that.
It was strategy. It wasn't knee-jerk reaction, hey, we got to do something.
Yeah, it really was. It was really interesting seeing, and I think the craziest piece was me wrestling, and you got to see some of that, was me wrestling with why on earth would God call us to do this as a church when it doesn't even really make sense? And then, fast forward a few months, and then here we are doing this and saying, how can we really engage people online? So I think those are some of the main lessons for me.
Okay, I'm next.
Oh, you're next. This is starting to feel like the hot seat a little bit.
We could easily turn this into a roast if you want to.
I don't want to do that. That's too uncomfortable for me.
Okay, so I remember us having a conversation that you were going to do this whole thing. And I think we talked on the phone probably every day, almost probably for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're at the end of we're still in the midst of this pandemic,
Yeah.
right? We kicked this off in August. We are still not meeting in this room. And here we go.
Yeah.
With this whole brand new online ministry thing that we're doing. So how did you land on GCC? Like Green Chair, where did that come from?
That's crazy. So that's what was so crazy is like even thinking back, right? So we're looking back and kind of thinking through these lessons and stories. When we started Green Chair, like we weren't meeting in church at all. Like nobody was meeting in person. Everything was shut down. August was nuts and crazy. Numbers were crazy high. So it's so crazy to think about that like a little over a year ago it was. But so Green Chair was crazy in that I'm having this brainstorm meeting. I've gone back and forth. I wanted something to be meaningful. To have like, I didn't want it to just be a name for the sake of a name. I wanted it to have a meaning, but I also wanted it to be really outside the box. This was going to be outside the box for our church. I wanted it to be outside the box a little bit. And Brian Albrecht and I, who is like literally the best person in the world to kick around ideas with, because it's like the sky is the limit, right? Let's just throw everything out there and kind of pick and choose what works. And so we're tossing around ideas, and he's like, if you could make it, what if it was like about an object? Is there like a significant object in your life? Or what if it was about something based around a table or a chair or something, if it was about an object? I was like, this green chair. Like, this is literally the original green chair. I was like, I have a green chair. I got it at the very beginning of my ministry, and that's what I think Green Chair, and then we're having conversations, and that's kind of how it was birthed out of this. But the funny piece of that was the chairs. We had issues getting the chairs.
Okay.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
So we had issues with these chairs. So I had one chair came in. I have got to find this picture.
These chairs are round too.
Yes. These chairs, but what we had is these, I ordered some chairs. I got a bunch of them. We finally realized, okay, we're getting to go on this. We got to order tons of chairs. I get these chairs that was maybe about Dell, our 7-year-old, barely could fit in this chair. Like this chair came in. I have a picture of Tommy. I sent it to you, right? I sent you a chair of Tommy sitting in this teeny tiny green chair. I ordered 4 of them because I'm thinking, this is it. This is our green chair. We had a whole logo around the new chair, right?
Yeah.
And it had arms on it. It was really cool. And it was like this big. Like it was so tiny. And so we have 3 days or 4 days before we're about to shoot the premiere. We're going to do the new logo, and I have 0 green chairs at this moment. Like that would not work. And I remember 2 things I started with Green Chair that was right off the bat I knew I needed to do. The first thing is I got a prayer team of people together, and I knew I have no idea what I'm doing. I also know when you put anything online, you're kind of opening yourself up to like lots of criticism, lots of who knows what can happen here.
Yeah.
And then also I knew this is a new lane for Hope. I really wanted it covered. So I kind of contacted a bunch of people I knew that just would be covering this day in, day out. And the second thing was a creative advisory team. I got a group of people together that had different perspectives, different ministry experiences, and just to kind of help us kind of pave this way. So I emailed the prayer team, and I'm thinking, this is the silliest prayer request I've ever had in my entire life. I've been in ministry like a lot of years, and I have never asked for somebody to pray for a chair to arrive on time. And so I have to send these people that I really do admire. Like I value these people, and I'm like, man, these are like prayer people. And I'm about to say, hey guys, can you pray for a chair to come in on time? Because we have 0 green chairs. The name of our thing is Green Chairs, and we're about to do this whole shoot to launch this entire ministry this weekend. And I did it, and I really felt in that moment, when I emailed them, I owned the fact that this is the silliest prayer request I've ever had in my entire life. But I felt in that moment God really impressing on me, not to get pastoral, but I'm about to. I really felt God impressing on me, no thing is too small. I think we focus on the big stuff. I think we focus on the big ministry moments, and I think God was reminding me in that moment, there's nothing too small to pray for. There's nothing too small to bring to my attention. And sure enough, the chairs arrived literally the next day. They should have arrived like 2 days later.
That was like what, a couple of days?
It was like 2 days early. It was going to be 2 days late. It arrived 2 days early.
You know what I think is cool though? One of the things that you just said was we were literally like boom, 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 like phone conversations, logos, like this whole thing came together probably in like a matter of 4 weeks or something like that.
It was wild.
And we were nonstop, right? Like moving. And then all of a sudden we get to this screeching halt because we have no chairs.
For green chairs.
For green chair. And so I think what's cool about that is the fact that going nonstop We
Yeah.
were forced to stop.
That's a
and have
good point too. Yeah.
Just, I think, sit and be
Obedient.
yeah.
And just kind of wait it out. Yeah, it really forced us to press pause and then to remember, God started this thing, God's going to finish this thing. God's going to do what God's going to do,
Yeah.
And I think it was just such a good grounding moment. Okay, I have to interject on a question now. Too many questions to me, so I'm going to ask you guys a question. We have had a long journey. We've had 40-something episodes, 42 episodes. And talk to me about guests that impacted you, guests that challenged you, guests that, anything kind of stand out to you about a particular guest? Or story or lesson that somebody said. It doesn't have to be, I kind of don't like playing favorites with this, but
Yeah.
it's more about, is there a story that you're like, man, God really used that in my life? I think that's more what I'm saying. Heather, I'm going to start with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, because the thing that came to mind first was hearing some responses and reactions from people in our Hope family to the Green Chair Conversations. This spring, I was talking to one of our college graduates who is doing a year-long fellowship program in Fresno, California.
Okay.
And she's been working her way through. She's like, I have to go in order. And so she's been going through systematically listening to every conversation on a podcast. And she just talked to me about how much it's helped her stay connected to the church, even though she's across the country now, that it's helped her feel like she's still part of her Hope family. So I love that really met the need that we were trying to do of like, hey, we're not physically together when we started it. How can we still help people feel connected? But then also after you and I had our Green Chair conversation, one of our Hope family members reached out to me and we had lunch. She and I had lunch and just had the most wonderful, lovely conversation. We both cried several times, just really opened up, shared our lives with each other in ways that we didn't even realize we could or expected. And so I love that too, that Green Chair also helped us have in-person connections that we wouldn't have had
That's really
otherwise.
cool.
Yeah. So like we all pour our hearts into this
Yes.
for what happens on camera or on mic.
Yeah.
But there's so much that happens
Behind
beyond
the
that.
scenes.
Yeah. And the ripple effects that affect our Hope family have
That's
been so
that's
lovely.
really cool. I love that too, because with Chad and Julie's episode just a few weeks ago, I have had so many people reach out to me about, and I actually had this as well with your episode on loss. I had so many people talk to me about, thank you for talking about loss. Thank you for talking about hard stuff, and then they tell me their whole story. So basically it just kind of opens these doors to have hard conversations, whereas how do you open that door to begin with, right? Like, how do you say, hey, I just had a miscarriage, or hey, I'm really down right now because of this loss. It's hard to start that conversation, but sometimes something like Green Chair can kind of open that door for those conversations, which I think is really, really cool.
Definitely.
First, I want to say you were definitely a fish in water with this. This is like a natural thing for you, so you really took charge of that thing and championed over it well. I think two of my favorite ones were the one with Tory Bates and one with John Carroll. And I like the fact that it wasn't very preachy and informative. It was more like you hearing somebody's story and getting to go along the journey with them. Even with John Carroll, as far as like Choose 901 and just understanding the birth of that and how it's been affecting the entire city. Just getting people to have a team spirit, so to say, and just being here intentionally, being on the front lines of doing things in the city and serving the city well, bringing new leaders into the city and serving well. So I was excited to see John up there. I wasn't expecting him, but it was good to see him up there.
Yeah, that was good.
And Tori, actually, he's from Atlanta, like I'm from Atlanta.
Yeah,
so I was like,
yeah.
all right, man. You know what I mean? We played ball a few times here, and I love what he's doing at FTK.
Yeah.
And just the marketing side of getting them out there and plugged into the city. He's been boots to the ground, just running, man.
Yeah.
So it was exciting to see
That's
those
cool.
two guys on there.
And you touched on something that was a surprising piece for me with Green Chair, was this community aspect of the Memphis community. So like the most interesting thing to me would be just this idea of like, I started reaching out to people within Memphis, and then the more I started reaching out, the more I kept learning more and more and more about like the really cool stuff our city is doing. And like, I loved Memphis before I did Green Chair. Now I like love Memphis, you know? Like, I think it's really cool how just seeing all of these really cool ministries, seeing what people are doing, seeing people like John Carroll, seeing people like Tori Bates. I mean, it's just so cool. I mean, we had so many of those. And that was kind of an unexpected thing. We weren't even trying to highlight the Memphis community. It just all of a sudden, it was like a ripple effect of, well, so-and-so, and then so-and-so, and then so-and-so. And so I love that you touched
Remember
on
you
that.
having that list of people
Yeah.
in one of our conversations. And it's like, where do we place all these people? Because we try to be strategic
Yeah,
in
yeah.
our monthly planning of the
Where
guests.
they go, yeah.
And then ripple effect, it just landed. And we basically had a whole month of episodes where it was all about Memphis. And it couldn't have worked any better, I don't think.
I heard the light that shines the furthest shines brightest at home. And I would hate to skip over the people that are laboring and doing well, right here.
Yeah.
Like Jesus said, a prophet is known in his own home. You have people laboring and giving their lives and doing some great things. So I'm glad that within the show we were able to capture that.
Yeah.
That's good.
I thought that was really good.
I'll piggyback on favorites, and I was going to say Tori Bates as well.
Yeah.
Tori's a friend too, and we've talked about the difference between needs and perceived needs, and I think that we get in a lot of trouble sometimes thinking that we know what someone needs, and instead really getting to the core of what is the actual need, and not just the perceived need. And what Tori has done over the last 18 months or so in the Raleigh community is staggering. He looked at actual needs and said, I'm gonna try to fulfill these, and I'm blown away by what he's accomplished. I will highlight two others quickly, and that you had one heck of a 1-2 punch with the Trotters.
I was going to mention Whitney too. We can't sit here and talk about. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, listen, they're obviously tremendously wise and smart folks, and just opened up and shared their life experiences.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too. So one of the behind the scenes things is the night before. Typically, you'll come and just say, hey, this is going to be my intro for this person. How do you feel about the intro? With both Whitney and Jeff's, they were really, really long, the intros, and it wasn't because you were being long-winded. It's because they've accomplished so much, and they have so many life experiences. So thank you, thank you for sharing, and thank you for putting that out there. So I've loved it.
Not to get all sentimental, I know we're trying to hold your tears back. I know this is big for you, but I did go through a intense season of loss. We had loss after loss, and I just appreciate having the opportunity to open up about those things and the process that and to be vulnerable about it. I needed that for my own soul. So I'm appreciative and thankful to the Lord for the Spirit just moving you in that direction, for us to put this together and then even be given the opportunity to open up about it. So yeah. Anybody got some tissues?
Thank you. What about you?
Oh gosh. Well, it's hard for me because we work so closely on all this.
I know,
and
you're
going
like deep in it.
back and forth. First I'll echo what he said. Fish and water. You have pioneered this thing flawlessly, I think, and have done an amazing job. And we've talked a lot about that from the beginning until, now here we are 9 months later. So you've definitely done a really good job.
Thank you.
As far as some of my favorites, I think I have a couple. I think one of my favorites is kind of the unplugged episode of you and Tommy.
That could have gone a lot of different ways.
Well, the reason I think I liked that so much was it was total kind of flipping the script.
Yeah.
During all of the episodes as hosting, you're having this conversation and initiating conversations with the questions that you pull together. But I think what was cool is for people to have more of like an inside look into who you are and to Tommy and to your family. When you preach, there's a little bit of an element there, but particularly within the realms of this show, you're the face, but it's cool to see
Behind the scenes.
and just like for people to really, I think, get to know you guys and how supportive Tommy's been.
But you did a great job of filming, and even though you tripped like 4 times and bumped your head twice, no one knew.
You did film that one. I don't know if people know that, but yeah, you filmed that on your phone. That was a cool one. That was when we were trying to think outside the box on doing some just creative different things. And when we were telling stories about our daughters, you were just sitting there like laughing, trying to hold the camera still.
Well, it's hard. Like knowing you guys personally, it's hard not to like know more of, behind the scenes. Second one I'll say quickly, I think, was Pastor Chad and his wife, Julie.
Yeah.
Not just because I have a personal connection with them. Really, I just, when you go through a season of loss, it's not necessarily always just a bounce back. It doesn't 1 day or 2 days and all of a sudden you're just back in and rolling. You might slowly start to come out of it, and something might potentially trigger you to experience or think through that loss.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is, when I was sitting here thinking, I'm going to ask these people this question, and so I'm going to get ahead of any of you asking me this question. But I was just thinking through, it's like picking your favorite child, right? Like, I think you have such a cool experience with each. I actually ran into Mark Russell the other day. He was doing work at a coffee shop. I go to the coffee shop, and I see him, and it was just like, hey, like you just have, like, I feel like we're best friends just because we sat down for a few minutes and had this conversation. But there's the behind the scenes conversations and me calling you and walking through these things, me praying about those conversations. And so I think all of that behind the scene work, and then you kind of come out of this, and I just feel so connected to all these people I've gotten to interview. But I had to, the one that just so stands out to me, that mainly, this is more of a personal thing. So the one I have to jump on is Effie for me. The one that, reason why I really just kept coming back to it was actually Effie and Whitney Trotter. I didn't know you were going to do that, so that's kind of funny. It's like we're married. But Effie to me is so she gets in this conversation, and number one, same thing with the credentials she had was just insane, and the work she's been doing. But she gets into has tears over how being courageous and bold and having confidence is a battle. And that completely blew my mind. And to me, it kind of started this lesson within me of you never know what somebody goes through to get to where they are. Because I look at Effie and I think, you've got it. You're on stage and you're singing and you're doing some crazy cool things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, she's like, I wrestle with confidence. I wrestle with boldness. And I resonate with that, And so I think that was such a key lesson. And then Whitney's was man, I loved her and love her passion on, she just saw a need. She was like, I see a need. I don't necessarily know everything I need to know about this, but I'm going to jump in and find a solution. And that's just so powerful to me because I feel how often do we feel like we have to have answers to the end of the road? I feel like my degree has to, when she jumped into this, her degree wasn't necessarily in mental health, but now she's kind of circled back on that. But that's just so powerful to me to say this is a huge need. God has put me here. I'm just going to figure this out. I don't have to have the skill set. I don't have to have all the wisdom and knowledge in the world. I'm just going to figure it out. And those two I keep coming back to constantly in my own personal life, of just saying, I gotta go back to that.
Well, speaking of all these guests, give us a window into a little behind the scenes look. Yeah. How did you choose who to interview? Even the timing of when you invited people in. Give us an insight into that process for you.
And I love that you're asking that question because you're on the creative advisory team. So obviously putting together this team of people that have different roles, different ministries, are diverse, gender, race, all of that, just to kind of put all of our perspectives together to say, let's talk about what we see a need for, who do we need to bring on. And so we'll kind of pray through that, think through that together as a team, and names will get brought up. But the coolest piece to me has been, there have been quite a few guests that is so God just works massively in. It's so bizarre. All of a sudden we'll throw a name out in a creative advisory team, or somebody will mention a name to me, and then it's within a week or so, somebody's name will get mentioned 3 or 4 times. It's the wildest thing. And the one I think of with that was Kurt Tower. So we're talking about how Dr. Kurt Tower from West Cancer Clinic, we're talking about we need somebody. This is when COVID is crazy, right? We need a doctor. We need somebody in the medical industry. Then somebody brings up, I mean, we're kind of going around and around about this. My dad, in the meantime, is going through lung cancer. He's seeing a guy named Dr. Tower. And I have a meeting with Rufus, and Rufus is like, I've got this great friend I think you should interview. His name is Dr. Tower. And I was like, and I'm a very private person. Me talking to everybody about my dad's journey with cancer is a whole thing. But I think I said to Rufus, Rufus, you don't know this, but my dad has lung cancer and he's seeing Dr. Tower. And so God did crazy stuff like that along the way. So sure enough, I reach out to Dr. Tower. I'm like, I named my dad, and then I named all the things. Rufus mentions your name. And so it's just one of those things where, I mean, top of the list is God has done some crazy cool things of bringing names along the way. Rick Shadyac was one. Yeah. And there's a couple others along the way that God has just really been like, you need this. And then our creative advisory team kind of talks through that. But the biggest piece for us as we look through each episode, each month, is really wanting to be diverse. Right? Wanting to be diverse on voices, the age of people, the race of people, the gender of people. I think we all need to be hearing those stories. I'm impacted by stories. And then also educating us a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, I want us to be able to, we've been talking a lot about Whitney. Apparently this is a Whitney episode, but she educated us on what is this eating disorder look like with Black and brown people, right? So what does this look like within this community? And I didn't even know that was a thing until we talked to Whitney, and so she kind of pushed us a little bit and educated us. Same thing with Joe Gilbert, educating us on the special needs community. How do we use language? How do we use words? And so I kind of was intentional on, I want people to educate us along the way. I want people to push us a little bit. I want people to challenge us. Cole Riley was one of those, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking through liturgies and what that looks like. And that was from you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you had that connection. So I love how God has kind of interwoven all of these stories, not only to show this, like, I'm going to stop preaching in a moment because I am very passionate about, diversity and the fact that we have got to learn from one another and hear stories from one another and be challenged a little bit on how we see and how we think, so that we can better live out the kingdom of God.
Don't stop preaching. Cue the organ. Where's the organ?
So I'm gonna press pause on that. But
you know what's cool about that, though, that I remember in our early conversations when we were trying to come up, with like a tagline or elevator speech, like what actually is GCC, is everything that you just said. That ironically, we both had landed in that conversation of saying this is not a faith-based show or podcast. Like, there are people that come in and talk about their faith, but then there's also some guests that come in and may not talk about faith at all. And I just think that's cool because it's reached such a wide audience. I mean, it goes beyond just the Hope family or the local Memphis community. Yeah. And I think some of that is because we were able to be and
denominationally too, right? So we brought Father John on. We have we bring. I think we have to be like, I've had this conversation multiple times this past week. Is just, we have to be diverse in the conversations we're having. I think my faith is richer because I know somebody who is an Anglican priest. I know somebody who is an Episcopal priest. I have a Lutheran friend, a Methodist friend. Like, I think we have to. The more diverse the people we know, I think the richer our faith is. And so part of GCC is kind of pushing people to hear those stories and to be challenged a little bit. Okay, so I've talked too much. I need, I hate wrapping up this conversation, and I hate...
I want to ask Tommy a question, though.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Tommy, hot seat.
What was it like being the husband in the behind-the-scenes piece when she's brainstorming and writing and going through all of this? Because there would be nice if both of you guys would text me. It's like, you've got to rescue me.
Yeah.
I love taking the back seat to things. So as I mentioned in our episode, but seeing her process and be excited about this has been tremendous, and also the support that folks like you guys have offered up. you know, it is, she's, as you guys have said, just hit her stride in this. And so it is everything from, you know, thinking through how to bring a theme to a conversation and how she's going to weave that into the conversation, to wrestling with intros. And I mean, I don't know if everybody knows this, but you, in many cases, would film 4 episodes in one day.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
you leave the house with 4 outfits, I mean, and so
It's bizarre.
it
It's
is.
bizarre.
It is. And but I know that it's been it has given you energy. It has given you something good, and it's great. It's fun watching the girls, being able to see the girls. You know, they love the little the little
Bumper that.
where she does this thing and they impersonate her. So
Yeah, they make fun of me going like,
yeah.
2 things. One, I love the diversity, like you said, as far as perspectives. The more we understand each other's standpoints, you know, I think the more we have a holistic, God-like view of the
Yes,
situation,
yes.
right? Because somebody can be viewing from this angle, that angle, and God is the only one that sees things from every angle because He's everywhere at one time. So
Yeah.
I love the fact that it was very diverse. I've been here at Hope. I'm still kind of a newbie. It's been about roughly 2 years now.
Yeah.
And I think maybe year and a half of that has been in COVID.
yes,
But I've noticed this theme of, you know, we're to expect the unexpected.
yes.
Yeah.
What was something that you learned that you feel like that you didn't expect that you learned through the season?
It's funny that you say that too, because I loved when we were sitting around the table with our creative advisory team, and one of the things you said has so stuck with me, and it's pushed me actually throughout the season, has been to always kind of expect the unexpected, if you will, right? So you encouraged me to keep it unpredictable, and I thought that was really interesting because it pushed us to do some. We flipped the script, you know, where I had the original chair. We did a bunch of things where I felt like I'm going to keep it unexpected here or there and to try new things. It made me not afraid to. So I appreciate you asking that question. But for me, the unexpected piece was this. I'll just be completely transparent. Is just this internal piece, right? I did not expect this like fear and like worrying about what, like, I mean, literally we went on a limb here. Like everybody's in their homes, nobody's in church. We're starting a whole new thing. It's called Green Chair. It's not called Young Adult Ministry or, you know, student ministry or whatever. It's Green Chair, which kind of really went outside the box at Hope. So I had a lot of fear. Like, what if we do this and it just falls flat? Like, what if nobody's resonating? What if they can't like figure, you know? So I didn't anticipate the internal fear of that. Also wrestling with the trust factor of like, okay, who is God going to bring, and how is that even going to work? So I didn't expect that as much. And even I mentioned it earlier, was this love for Memphis. The Memphis community highlighting what people are doing has been so cool to me to see. Just what's going on in our own city. I've had so many conversations around things that are happening in Raleigh, in our backyard, and it has been really, really cool for me. So that was a super, super unexpected thing. That was
I
unexpected.
love that you said that God sees all angles. Because I just,
Yeah.
from the chairs thing, like not showing up potentially, to rewriting intros,
Yeah.
changing intros last minute, guests
Yeah.
canceling, you know, people saying no, COVID scares with everybody, moving production, things with, you know, families. And so that just like,
Yeah.
when you said that, that hit me, because truly we were navigating this whole new thing, and there wasn't, I feel like, one episode, one conversation, one guest where it was not apparent that God was in every single detail of all that. Like all through the pandemic, I said, God's not surprised by any of this.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Yeah.
of this that surprises him.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same way for us. Like
Yeah.
we get frustrated, bent out of
Yeah.
shape, you know,
Yeah.
I'm calling you. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so on and so forth.
And to piggyback off of that, I'm actually going to interrupt on the piece of it has kept another unexpected thing or two things. It has kept me insanely flexible. Like there were times, you know, Tommy and I were supposed to record our episode. We get quarantined, right? Because we had an outbreak at the girls' school. We get quarantined. We have to bump it back 2 weeks, which is like to the wire, which forces us to do the unscripted episode where you're filming on your camera so we can just turn it over quicker.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were so many things that happened like that. Somebody got sick one time. So you have to be insanely flexible. And it just was like, it pressed me on that. And and it's actually helped me be a better pastor, truthfully, to be like, well, here we go. You know, like, it's okay. God's in the details of when things are going to happen and why they happen. And it happens at the exact time.
Flexibility. I had surgery one day, and Jess is
Oh,
like,
that's
how you
right.
feeling? Are you doing okay? Hey, what's the deal with this episode? And I'm like, laying on the couch.
I forgot about
I'm
that.
like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got this.
And you're
I promise
publishing
I'm working on it.
That was crazy. Yes, I do remember that. It's been crazy. And the other main one to me would be the power of story. I was just thinking of. I have been blown away by people's stories. And I think stories change people. I think sometimes you don't ever know, kind of back to that Effie piece, is like you never know what somebody's been through to get to where they are. And I think, this whole facade with social media and thinking through, I think you have it together and you have it together, and I'm married to you, so I know we kind of don't have it together. And I think you have it together. I mean, it's easy to look at people and say,
Oh, I have fooled you then.
you've got it, And I think sometimes when we peel back these layers of like, whoa, you went through some serious tragedy to get to where you are. I think you say, okay, like I think I can get through my issue. I think I can get through my tragedy a little bit better. So my last question to you guys, for the people listening, watching, what would you kind of leave them with? This has been a crazy year, a crazy exciting season. What is one challenge, encouragement, just kind of something you want to leave people with today listening?
Yeah. I think just going off of what we were just talking about, I think for people to think about their own stories in a different way. It is so easy, like we're saying, to like look at everybody else and be like, oh, that's so interesting, that's so inspiring. I could never do that. But I think the show has taught us everybody's doing something and has something to offer. And I think let's think more deeply about what's the story of our city, what's the story of Memphis, and the story that we're continuing to write and contribute to.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. We'll go around the circle. Jeff?
I would say, just as a sailor looks to catch the wind in his sail to get them to their destination, so should we look to the Holy Spirit to accomplish his mission that he set out to accomplish in and through us. So expect the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected. You never know where the wind's going to blow or go.
Yeah.
Tommy?
I think allow yourself to be inspired, and because that is inspiration breeds action, and which hopefully breeds good things. And so I think that there are a lot of inspiring people that you interviewed, and I'm inspired by you as well. And so I think that is, in some ways it's humbling ourselves, in some ways it's checking our privilege, in some ways it's whatever that is to think inside again in order to act.
I like that.
You could be a pastor.
He's got too many pastors in his life.
I gotta bring him down.
Oh, gosh. I guess I'll try to tie it together. My thing that comes to mind is don't ever be afraid to get out of the boat. This pandemic has been, I think, one of the most challenging years and a half, probably, of my life. And I found myself having to think strategically during that time that we were all locked down at home of how to get out of the boat. And like I was saying earlier, God's not surprised by anything. That was probably my daily reminder every single day during COVID, is like to try to keep me saying that God's not surprised by any of this. So our fears, our doubts, our worries, our concerns let that go. Let that be what pushes you to get out of the boat. Not 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but to fully trust and just get out of the boat.
That's really good. That's really good. My final reminder would be to listen, and to listen well and listen deeply. I think I've learned a lot by listening. Just all I'm doing is listening to these people's stories, and I think I have learned so much and it's made me, again, a better wife, mom, daughter, pastor, just to deeply listen to what people are saying. I think sometimes we get in trouble where we make assumptions. You know, we jump to conclusions. We can see the outside and then think that, well, this is how they are on the outside. This must be what's going on the inside. And I think we would all do a lot better if we talked less and listened more.
Yeah.
And I think if we really invested in just hearing people's stories, hearing people's journeys, and kind of growing from that, if you will. So that'd be my one thing.
Before we wrap, can I say one more thing?
You don't know what we're about to do. I was about to do this.
I know you well enough. I just want to point out that aside from like our advisory team, guests, family conversations, there's an entire crew
Yes.
of production and
Thank you for
audio
doing
people
that.
that you guys don't see that are
Yes.
literally all behind cameras right now, and audio
exactly
people
right.
that work really, really hard to help pull this off and make everything look really good.
And not
So
only
a huge thank you to all of them.
I'm adding on to that. I'm not wrapping it up because I'm adding on to all of these people because they are insanely talented, insanely gifted, and are pushing me to kind of keep this going and thinking outside the box and making this better. So
Yeah.
you're dead on that. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
I'm getting the hands ready, guys. I'm getting the hands
This is
ready.
the thing. This is
This
the
is the
thing.
thing now. Tommy makes so much fun of me.
Never.
Never. And that is a wrap for season 1 of Green Chair Conversations. We would love for you to take a moment, share today's conversation with a friend. You can also watch any previous conversations on our YouTube channel or hopechurchmemphis.com/GCC, or listen wherever you stream your podcasts. And one final word before we go today. Thank you for not only joining us today, but for this entire season of Green Chair Conversations. I am so incredibly thankful to everyone who played a part in making Green Chair a success, but most especially for you watching and engaging with us along the way. We are so excited for some fun new things coming up in season 2 that I cannot wait to share with you. So I love you guys, and I'll see you in season 2.